There are a lot of bad cards in Magic, but I think Sorrow's Path might be the worst. This land from the dark is atrocious. The Oracle text reads, tap, choose 2 target blocking creatures an opponent controls. If each of those creatures could block all creatures that the other is blocking, remove both from combat. Each one of them blocks all creatures the other was blocking. Whenever Sorrow's Path becomes tapped, it deals 2 damage to you and each creature you control. So it's a land that doesn't tap for mana, that can swap 2 of your opponent's blocking creatures, but it shocks you and pyroclasms your whole board. As soon as I saw how terrible this card was, I immediately tried to build an EDH deck around it, and find a way to use this as my win con. Before I tell you how, real quick, if you like videos like this, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, or commenting. It really helps. So to make Sorrow's Path the win condition, I decided I needed to take this terrible card and put it in my opponent's deck. The main way of doing this was copying it with Orvar. Now, Orvar plus effects like Twiddle can copy permanents you control. This lets us create multiple copies of Sorrow's Path. Then the commander, Zedru, will take those copies and dish them out to your opponents. So now they have a bunch of crappy Sorrow's Paths. And while you're doing this, Zedru is drawing cards and gaining life to help you stabilize. Now, once we've given our opponents copies of Sorrow's Path, they're not going to just tap it by themselves, we have to force them to do so. Cards like Tectonic Instability and War's Toll are both great ways to do this. Instability will tap it whenever your opponent plays a land, and War's Toll will tap it whenever your opponent taps a land for mana. Not to mention, putting cards like Twiddle under an Isochron Scepter or Icy Manipulator can also just tap down the path. And tapping down Sorrow's Path is actually really powerful. That's instant speed, 2 damage to your opponent's entire team, and also 2 damage to them. It can make playing small creatures really difficult. This deck has so many moving parts though. It's chock full of tutors, otherwise you're just never going to be able to find what you need. To get the Sorrow's Path, you can use one of your artifact tutors to get Expedition Map, and then for just about everything else, Wild Research will get you anything you need, including Orvar. Wild Research can tutor up long-term plans which can grab Orvar. Assuming you don't discard it, it's not a perfect solution, but it is a way to tutor it in Jeskai colors. Since the deck heavily relies on Orvar, we have Pull from Eternity and Elixir of Immortality just to get Orvar back in the deck or out of exile, and same with Sorrow's Path, to be honest. Now, once you have amassed all of these pieces, you can play a damage doubler like Dictate of the Twin Gods or Furnace of Wrath to crank up the damage. 4 damage to your opponent's entire board will keep most small creatures away. And if you manage to use Orvar to copy Isochron Scepter, and then you have 1 Isochron with Dramatic Reversal and 1 Isochron with Twiddle underneath it, you could then infinitely tap and untap an opponent's Path of Sorrow and do infinite damage. Is this deck good? No. Is it consistent? Not even close. Would it be better in a 5-color shell? Maybe? If you could come up with one, throw a link in the description, I'd love to see it. But this deck is pretty funny if you manage to pull it off and at the very least knock a player out with a gifted Sorrow's Path. The damage does really crank up once your opponent has multiple Sorrow's Paths and they're being forced to tap multiple of them at once, and there's a damage doubler. It can get pretty scary if you put all the pieces together. I love these Rube Goldberg machine style decks that need 20 things to go right before anything happens at all. But I want to hear from you. Do you like to play kooky crazy combos like this? Or do you prefer something more consistent? Have you ever seen anyone play Sorrow's Path, much less win with it before? Check out the full deck list in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more.